In America, we have a problem, which is a spending problem. If you like to go shopping and swipe those cards, well, there's something that you need to keep in mind. There are consequences to carrying credit card balances. Now, in this video, I'll be sharing with you some facts, and some of the things that I will be talking about will probably apply to you. So I would advise that you kindly stick around by watching this video, and also if you find value in it, please don't forget to drop a like on this video. Now, in America, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the total credit card debt is around $986 billion and is increasing each day. On an average, the balances on each credit card ranges from somewhere between $6,000 to $8,000. If you could think back to the days when interest rates were lower, you would realize that maybe there isn't much consequences, or the price of carrying those debt wasn't steep. Nowadays, the interest rates on most credit cards ranges from around 18% to almost 30%. Carrying the credit card balance for a long time means that you would be paying steeply for carrying those debt. In this video, I will share 4 common mistakes that you should avoid in order to, 1, have a good credit rating, and secondly, pay less in interest towards these banks. At the end of the day, the banks are there to reap the gains. If you're new here, my name is Stephen Ojo, and on this channel, I talk about finance and investing. So if you are interested in any of those, please consider subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to drop your like and leave your comments in the comment section below. I would respond when I can. The first mistake you want to avoid is maxing out your credit card. If you think about this, let's assume that you spend $3,000 on a credit card. By the end of your billing cycle, say a 30-day cycle, you would end up owing about $54 in interest. And that means, that is money that is literally being thrown out of the window because of the $3,000 you spent. But also there's a second part to it. By maxing out that credit card, you also take a hit on your credit score. So be very careful about maxing out your credit card. If you know that you're going to be making a big purchase, you can always ask for an increase in credit limit. That way, let's say you want to buy something that is $2,000 and you have a credit card that has a limit of maybe $3,000. You can always ask to raise your limit from $3,000 to maybe $5,000, and then you can make the purchase of, let's say, $2,000. Technically, that is also too close to comfort. You know why? Because if you fail to make the full payment to cut the balance down within that billing cycle, what would eventually happen is that because you spent more than 30% of the limit on the credit card, it tends to show negatively on your credit report as well. Ideally, you do not want to go more than 20 to 30% spent on your credit card. So let's say you have a credit card limit of $10,000. You don't want to spend more than $3,000 on that credit card, especially if you're going to be carrying any balances on it. Again, you want to avoid the balance in the first place. And while we're talking about making payment, the next thing you want to make sure is that you want to make the full payment. The reason is because by making minimum payment, you're going to spend way too much money in interest, and you're going to be spending a longer time to pay off that card. I'll give you a good example. Let's say you spent $3,000 and an interest rate of about maybe 22%. You'll be spending close to $54 on interest for that cycle, for just one cycle. The third common mistake that I think a lot of us also can fall into is making late payment. The reason is this: if you make a late payment, apart from the interest that you have to pay for, you also have to pay a penalty. There's a fee, the late payment fee, that you have to make as well. And this tends to increase your balance overall. And sometimes that is also reported on your credit report. And this is something that you always want to avoid. So the best thing you can do is if you know that you're going to be late making your payment, it's best you call your bank and try to request maybe a forgiveness if possible. You still have to pay the fee, but maybe they can at least work with you. Maybe cut down the amount of that amount you need to pay, maybe defer the payment a little bit or spread it out more for you. There are options, but do not take the hit on your credit score. So I think the worst part of all of this conversation is using your credit card as a debit card. You know how you can go to an ATM and withdraw cash or cash advance? This is a mistake that you want to avoid, because by doing that, you pay a lot more in fees And secondly, you have very limited amount of time to repay that money. And due to that, you end up paying so much more in interest over the course of that balance. Credit cards are supposed to be used and paid for right away. You're not supposed to be carrying balances on your credit card unless it's a 0% APR type credit card. But you always have to be very careful because your credit cards can put you in a lot of debt that can drown your finances for a very long time.